So you want to go to Disney World solo. Hello everybody, my name is Sandrine. Welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, I make Disney content, particularly surrounding my trips, mostly solo, and in today's video, I'm going to discuss all of the things about going solo in Disney World, some of the pros, some of the cons, and then whether or not I'd recommend you go to Disney World solo. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe for current and future Disney content, as well as I am over on Instagram at magically.sandrine, where I post real-time Disney content as well. It is Little Mermaid release weekend, so we are rocking the ears for today's sit-down video. Technically not because I'm standing, but let's get into solo travel. So at this point in my Disney attendance life, I have been to Disney World on specific solo trips twice now, but then I have also done solo days where the actual trip I've traveled with friends and family, but I will take some days to just do the parks on my own or stay back and go to Disney Springs on my own or do a resort day on my own. I am not specifically talking about solo days. That is my recommendation though. If you are looking to do a solo trip at Walt Disney World, I would highly recommend doing a solo day. That way you can figure out whether or not you want to take the plunge as far as booking an entire trip for going solo. But I'm not going to be talking about specific solo days. I'm going to be talking about solo trips. So you have decided that you are going to spend X amount of days in the parks, whether it's a short weekend or a prolonged week, whatever that looks like, this video is for you. I'm just going to go ahead and start with the cons. I can only think of 3 cons. Keeping in mind my personality. I am someone who likes to go on places by myself. I am a solo traveler. It's just my thing. I enjoy solo vacations. I am a loner. What can I say? So if you are also like me and you plan frequent solo vacations, then booking a solo trip to Walt Disney World might not be a big thing. However, if you've never traveled by yourself or you're not typically someone who books a solo vacation, these are some of the things you might want to keep in mind when it comes to booking your next solo trip. The first con, clearly it's going to be slightly more expensive. Why? Because you are eating the cost of your hotel. That is really the only cost that I could think of that you typically wouldn't take over entirely if you were with a group of people. That and restaurant and service tips, you might be splitting those with people, you might be sharing a meal, you might split a couple of meal things, but I think the biggest cost that you might want to consider when booking, especially if you're staying on property, is the hotel. The next thing that I could think of that is a really big con is you're alone in Disney World. Now, again, for me, but if you think about it, Disney World is a place where you make magical memories with your loved ones. And when you're by yourself, right? You're alone in Disney World. That is a con in some cases and a pro in other cases, and I'm going to get into the pros later on. But thinking about cons as far as being alone in Disney World, that also is a pretty big deterrent, because if you've never been by yourself, you've never had a solo day, you might think it's weird that you're alone in the line and you're in front of a family, a huge family, or like a couple who are, sharing memories and playing games in line or taking pictures of one another, and you're just by yourself in line, or you're by yourself on the hub grass, or you're by yourself in your hotel room. So that might be something that you might not want to do. And finally, the only other thing that I could think of when it comes to cons going to Disney World, and again, this is coming from someone who travels by themselves. If you have some more cons or concerns or worries about booking your next solo trip, definitely leave them in the comment section down below. But the last con that I could think of is dining. Solo dining can be awkward if you don't eat by yourself normally. So if you don't regularly take yourself on dining dates in your hometown, or if you don't regularly eat at Disney solo, booking a solo dining experience can be kind of awkward. And also, there are some dining experiences where you just can't do. But you can do, but for example, table service dining that is like, I'm trying to think of one, like Garden Grill or Woody's Roundup Barbecue, or how they used to do Chef Mickey's, but I think now it's buffet. But like things where like it's family style. Ohana is a big one where they're just bringing you skillets and plates of food that is meant to feed a party of 2+ people. That is a lot of food for one person, and it's very expensive. Typically those places have set menu prices and it's all you can eat, but they're bringing in like huge skillets of food. So if you really want to experience Ohana, of course, there's no one is saying, no, you can't go to Ohana because you're by yourself, but keep that in mind. That's a lot of food for one person. But aside from that, eating by yourself alone at a table service or even a quick service situation might not be ideal if you've never done it before. That's why I highly recommend solo days. Should you choose to do a solo day in the parks, that might be something that you want to try out. So maybe book like a table service that's not necessarily like family buffet style or family table style, so that you can kind of test the waters and see what it's like sitting by yourself in a restaurant. If that's something that you don't necessarily like to do, then maybe on your solo trip, don't book any table service dining. It's perfectly fine. You can eat in the parks. There are plenty, especially in Epcot, there are plenty places where you don't have to necessarily make a reservation to eat there. Now let's move into the pros. I have so many pros and why I highly recommend you go to Disney on your own. The first one is the most obvious, and that's you get to do whatever you want. When you book a Disney vacation and when you plan a Disney vacation and you think about all the logistics, like you see those memes. I'm going to see if I could try to find that meme and put it in the video of the guy standing in front of the whiteboard with like all the stickies, and it's just like trying to explain or trying to plan Disney dining or Disney vacations in general. Typically, if you're the person who goes to the parks frequently, or if you're a Disney Parks fan, you're the one left planning all the things, making sure all the puzzle pieces fit together, getting up early, getting all the lightning lanes and all the things. It can be kind of stressful. Booking a trip with other people in mind. Obviously, you're spending all this money. You want to make sure everyone gets the opportunity to do what they want to do. And while that is the goal, it often does not always come to fruition. There's always someone who is not going to be able to do everything that you want to do just because of time. Disney World is huge, and walking around the parks all day in the heat on all 4 parks and Disney Springs and your resort, you're not going to get to do everything that someone wants to do. However, when you're by yourself, you get to do what you want to do. So if you want to go to the parks for 2 hours, sit on the hub grass and drink your Starbucks and leave, you can do that. If you want to spend all day at Hollywood Studios writing Tower of Terror over and over and over and over and over again, you can do that. If you want to sleep all day at your resort for your resort day, you can do that because it's your solo trip. You map it out how you want to map it out, and that is the biggest pro that I can give anybody who is looking to do a solo trip. On that same note, you get to go at your own pace. When I do solo trips, I am never exhausted because it's my timing, my pace. If I want to go slow in the morning, I can. If I want to go balls to the wall, rope drop the fireworks, I can. If I want to have a rest hour in between, I can. I'm not asking a bunch of people, hey, do you want to go back to the resort to relax for an hour? I think that would be beneficial for us to do if we're going to continue on into fireworks. Or hey, let's not sprint to Seven Dwarfs Mine Train because maybe you don't want to ride Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Going at your own pace is so nice because it goes into you get to do what you want to do. So you're not exhausted by the end of the night if you're not a rope drop to fireworks type of person. But if you are, you totally can do that and you don't have to worry about maybe someone else who isn't willing to just sprint through the parks. Again, totally up to you. It's your solo trip and you get to do that. Third one, I kind of already touched on that, is you get to experience your own magic in your own way. A really great example of this was my previous solo trip that I did back in March. I have a whole vlog series on that. I actually wrapped up that vlog series last weekend. I posted the Animal Kingdom solo vlog. I still have a haul from that series that I'm going to post after this video. But in that video, specifically in the Magic Kingdom vlog, I showed you guys me watching Enchantment from the Fantasyland area. Now, Enchantment, I did not like Enchantment. It was not my favorite fireworks show to ever come to Magic Kingdom. It just is not. So I've seen it a couple times down Main Street to just not want to see the projections. So I had to make my own magic by watching Enchantment from Fantasyland. And the 360 firework projection was absolutely incredible. That might not be something that your family wants to do. If your family has never seen, and at this point, Happily Ever After, which first of all, Happily Ever After down Main Street is a must. It is a tearjerker. That I would watch from Main Street because, I know I'm gonna cry on my July trip when I see Happily Ever After for the first time since the 50th has gone away. However, if you want to experience the fireworks, which I highly recommend, again, if you're a frequent park person, definitely see it from a different area. However, your family might not want to watch the fireworks from the back of the castle. That's something that you might not be able to do, or you might have to split up it's logistics, right? So if you want to watch the fireworks riding the People Mover, you can do that. If you want to watch the fireworks from Tomorrowland, you can do that. If you don't want to watch the fireworks, you can do that. Maybe you want to do a super special magical extra that you wouldn't necessarily get to do because of the cost per person. It's a lot cheaper to pay for one person, especially if you have an annual pass versus 4 people. Yes, those are memories made with other people, but if you just want to experience it once and say, oh my gosh, I got to do that for myself, that was such an amazing treat for myself, definitely do that. There are so many magical extras that I want to do around Disney World that I won't necessarily get to do with my family. A, because of mobility, but also B, because that's a lot of money for 5 people versus me going by myself or me going with a friend who also goes to Disney World a lot. So definitely keep that in mind. There are a lot of magical extras that you get to experience on your own that you wouldn't necessarily get to do or not get to do as often is if you are with a big group of people. The next thing that I love about solo trips and why I love traveling by myself in general, not just to Disney World, but to other places around the country and soon to be the world, is you get to learn about yourself, and it is definitely a growing experience. I have learned a lot about myself. I have learned some of my triggers. I have learned some of the things that make me happy, some of my frequent habits, some of the things that I enjoy doing as someone who's in her late 20s that I wouldn't necessarily have time to think about if I was, in line with someone who I know and who I talk, we're talking about different things. We're not necessarily reflecting on our life. I learned a lot about myself going to Disney World solo and going to Disney World solo days. And because you have that time, I love sitting on the hub grass in the morning with my pink drink and just people watching, but I'm also getting the opportunity to maybe journal, listen to the ambience, hub music in Magic Kingdom. And those are the mornings that I really, 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 really appreciate because I get to think back on how my year has gone so far. One of some of the things that I'm looking forward to doing this particular trip, but also reflecting back and being like, yeah, I am a more reserved person than I thought I was, or maybe I'm not a solo traveler. Maybe this trip shows me that I really need to be around other people in order to make myself happy. Those are some of the highlights of my trip, just thinking about just myself and reflecting over the year. And that's definitely a huge pro about going solo. Let's talk about timing of the year. When you book a vacation, you only have to think about your schedule. So do you have those days free? Can you go during that time of the year? You have those days off. You have a certain amount of days banked. When you're going with a big group of people, you have to consider everyone's schedule. Maybe you want to go during the Christmas season, but nobody has PTO for the Christmas season. So that might deter you from going from the Christmas season because your family maybe can't get off for, that specific season. Or maybe you have a family with a bunch of little ones who can only go during school holidays. Absolutely terrible time to go to Disney World because everyone else is on school holiday. So the timing is definitely something that comes into play as far as a pro goes, because you get to go when you want to go. And the last pro that I could think of, aside from the fact that solo trips are just generally magical, it's cheaper in some ways. So I know in the cons, I talked about how it's more expensive, mainly with the hotel, but it's also cheaper in a lot of other ways. Think about it. You're by yourself. It's only you. You only have to take care of yourself in terms of food. Genie Plus is huge. Genie Plus for one person as opposed to Genie Plus for multiple bodies of people. Wow, night and day. Like, you're talking like maybe $20 for yourself. That maybe is like a breakfast or a lunch for you versus $100 plus dollars for just Genie Plus. We're not even talking about individual lightning lanes. So that is something to think about. Yes, obviously people can Venmo you, but if you're the sole planner, the sole person, the sole whatever on the My Disney Experience app, that's just a lot to maneuver. If it's just you, you click in, you do whatever you got to do to secure your Genie Plus, your lightning lane, your mobile order. You only have to think about yourself. What are some other things? Food. I've already talked about food. Merch, especially if you have an annual pass. It's just cheaper in those aspects. Travel, air travel, ground transportation, if you're not doing Lyft. Now, that can go on the cons list, is if you're wanting to do a Lyft, it's more expensive to Lyft on your own or to rent a car on your own because you're not splitting that cost. However, if you're taking the bus system, such as Sunshine Flyer or Mears Connect, you're only paying for a one round trip ticket as opposed to 3 or 4. And they don't give you discounts the more tickets you buy, as well as airfare. If you have miles racked up and you want to spend miles on yourself, you can go do that as opposed to having to buy airfare and secure plane seats for multiple bodies of people. Just so many variables in terms of the pros as far as costs go that you don't have to worry about because it's just you. So definitely keep that in mind. It's cheaper in some ways, but it also is more expensive in other ways. So those are my pros and cons of going solo. Like I said, in the grand scheme of things, should you go to Disney World solo? Yes, absolutely. There are so many just moments and magical memories that are to be had when you go by yourself. I can't even begin to explain how much I love going to Disney World solo. Obviously, I love going to Disney World with my friends and family, but you guys are going to see in the upcoming vlogs, I mostly go to Disney World by myself. It is a joy. I get to maneuver the parks however I want to. I also, because I go to Disney World so much, I'm seen by my friends and family as like the tour guide, which is fine with me, but I'm on vacation too. I don't necessarily want to feel like I'm working and checking in on people. Like, I want to just do what I want to do, which is kind of selfish, but in the same tone, I'm also paying money to be there, and so I would like to do what I want to do. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully it inspires you to take your next solo trip down to Disney World. If you have a solo trip planned, or if you're looking to book a solo trip, let's talk about it in the comments. Make sure to thumbs up and subscribe for any current and future Disney travel, and I will see you guys in the next video.